In this lesson, we're going to take a look at the fundamentals of drawing hair. Now, the good news is that drawing hair is actually pretty straightforward and pretty easy, as long as you follow a key few set of rules. And we're going to take a look at these fundamentals right now. The first thing that we're going to look at is looseness and flow. And looseness and flow really refers to us being very loose with our hands when we're drawing the lines for the hair. Whether we're working in rough or refined, we want to be loose and flowy. And really what this means is that we get very smooth lines with no kinks or any weird wobbles on them. And in addition, we get beautiful tapers at the end of the lines, which are great for implying hair strands. So looseness and flow are quite pivotal. When we draw lines slowly, we tend to get two things happening. We get a lot of strange kinks in the hair that just really ruin the effect of smooth hair strands. And in addition, we also get really strange tips, sometimes very flat tips that just end and lack dynamism. So we really want to avoid drawing our lines for our hair slowly. It's really pivotal. The next thing that we're going to take a look at is directionality and gravity. And what this refers to is the effect of how hair sprouts from the head and then is pulled down by gravity across the face, the sides, and the back of the head. So hair kind of comes out of the roots and the top of the head, kind of like a plant sprouting. And it really has a lot of directionality to it, where it's fanning out in a star-like pattern from a central root area or from their point of origin and being pulled down by gravity across the side of the face. So keep in mind directionality and gravity in the hair. You don't want all your hair coming from one single location. It's going to look very strange, right? Make sure that the hair is stemming from multiple points across the head and is moving around the skull. The important thing to keep in mind here is that the hair is definitely built on forms in manga and anime style drawings. It is not purely symbolic. It definitely is form based. And on that note, we're going to move on to the third thing, which is hair volumes. So as the hair sprouts from the top of the head, what happens is the hair strands build on top of one another. And what this means is that at the top of the scalp, we tend to have a degree of volume. So we never draw the hair as if it's stuck to the scalp like glue, or that it's super wet or super thin and stuck to the skull. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that the hair kind of floats above the skull and that there is a lot of volume to the hair. And on that note, many female character designs in terms of manga style tends to have very rounded tops of their heads. Now, of course, this depends on the manga, it depends on the style and the sub-style, but keep this in mind. It's a very common attribute that girls will have very smooth, round tops of their head before the hair goes into its stylization as it comes down the side of the face. So do keep that in mind. Next, we're going to talk about masses and clumps and the overall shape. When we're drawing in a manga style, a lot of the time, our particular manga or our anime look or anime characters will have the similar set of eye designs. They'll have similar proportions of the face, and we have very few elements in a sense to differentiate one character from another. And so the hair becomes essential when we're thinking about the overall shape of the hair to allow us to indicate that each character is different from each other character. Of course, we also have elements such as their proportions, their body types, their clothing and their outfits, the colors of their hair and their eyes. But the actual shape, the overall shape of the hair, in a sense, the graphic shape of the hair, is quite pivotal in defining a character's look. Now, when we're building out the hair, we want to make sure that instead of doing many strands everywhere, we're building out big clumps of forms. So in this instance, I'm going to build out a big clump of form here, and another big form here, and another one here as well. And I want to imagine these as 3D forms, and I'm putting in these contour lines so I can help myself understand and imagine them as three-dimensional forms, just big masses. Don't worry about individual strands when you are just planning the overall masses and the overall shape. And while you're doing this, it is the right time to think about, how does this overall shape look for this particular character? Is it good to define the character that they are, that it's a clear indication of that character? And so we start with these masses and these clumps, and we build an overall shape when we're doing the hair first, before we go into detailing the hairlines. So on that note, we then don't want to overstrand. We want to keep our line overlaps simple and clear when we're doing the refined drawing of the hair, even in the rough stage. And so when we're rendering this out, let's lighten this up just a little bit. We can start adding more strands as we're roughing in the shapes a little bit better. But we're building these overlaps and these strands on top of those forms. And we want to make sure we're not putting too many lines in the hair. If we have too many lines inside the internal shape, it starts becoming very unclear, and unfortunately it also becomes a type of focal point in terms of the character's design, and we don't want that, because the hair itself shouldn't be a focal point of a character. The eyes and the face should be. So you can see here in this very simplistic rendering of the hair, we don't have crazy lines coming down the hair everywhere like this. We tend to want to leave a lot of empty space inside here and really be very cognizant of our line overlaps. So wherever we create line overlaps, we're creating depth, we're adding depth to the image. So keep this in mind. It's okay to have a few strands in the hair. I'm not saying don't do it anywhere, but if you begin to overstrand, you lose the stylistic look and aesthetic of manga stylized drawings. So keep things simple and don't overstrand the hair. Right, let's now take a look at just the rough and the refined workflow of doing the hair. And I have an example here of a sample rough, which is a rough drawing that I'd previously done. And we can see here the general massing, a very similar hairstyle to what we've seen before. We have this general mass over here, another mass over here, something like that, and a third mass over here. And what has happened is we've made sure that there is that space between the skull and the top of the hairline as well, so that we can give our character's hair some volume. And then when it comes time to do the clean lines, we want to be very loose, very flowy, and we don't have to stick exactly to the rough plan. We want to choose a natural look with a less control over a static look with more control. What I mean to say is, don't feel that you have to trace these lines exactly really slowly. You're going to lose looseness and flow. Rather, use your underlying rough as a guideline, and then feel free to be very loose and flowy in how you render out these lines. So you can see here, I may not follow it exactly, but I get a very loose and natural look because I'm allowing the lines to just flow. And that's totally okay. You want that to happen because it gives the work a very natural and loose look to the hair. And in this instance here, I totally didn't even follow the plan, but it still looks okay. So this is how you keep a natural look in the hair. make sure you are very loose and very flowy. Final, very, very important element of drawing hair fundamentals is that we want to make sure that we are not creating a sawtoothed look. So let's just move this image out of the way. Our sixth point here is no sawtoothing, and I'll explain what that is now. So typically, when someone is new to drawing anime or manga styles, it's common for them to do what is called sawtoothing, where they're drawing these manga style blades, something like this. And the problem here is that these strands are each almost the same. They have a very similar repeating pattern. We have a lot of parallels, and this is very, very unappealing. So don't ever sawtooth. Make sure that every strand is different from the next strand. And a key to doing this is understanding a particular area of composition in terms of shape, size, proportions to one another. And a good way to manage your flow is big, small, and medium. And what that means is instead of having a big strand and a big strand and a big strand, you can have a big strand and a small strand and a medium strand and a big strand again, maybe even bigger, and then a smaller strand, a medium strand, and you can see that not a single element or hair clump here is the same. And you can see that taking place in the example here, where we have this very big strand and a medium-sized strand, a smaller strand, maybe to another medium-sized strand, into this big strand over here. And we have a constantly changing size relationship between each of these clumps. So here we have a big strand, and this one's sort of medium-ish, the next one's bigger. And so as long as the flow is constantly different, big, small, big, medium, small, medium, big, small, something like that, you want to make sure that nothing is the same. And that is very, very important to achieving a natural look as well. So in ending, using these 6 fundamentals of drawing hair, you'll be able to create a massive variety of hairstyles and draw them in a fundamentally correct way. Even if you're not drawing anime and manga, these really are the fundamentals of drawing hair. In the next lesson, we're going to deep dive some specifics to the anime and manga style of hair in terms of stylizing the hair more for that particular look. That's the end of this lesson, and I'll see you in the next lesson.